Hey, so it is day 3 of my Demolishing the Good Girl Archetype journey for the month of March for Women's History. And so if this is the first video that you're seeing, hi, I'm Famira. And what I'm doing is essentially, if you're following my Substack, uh, I'm writing an article each day in regards to the way in which this good girl archetype is showing up in my life and like aha moments that I'm having around it, as well as different thoughts I have around how it holds us back as women, specifically women of color, and more precisely Black women. And so I'm writing an article every day on my Substack. So if you're watching this video on my YouTube, then you definitely want to go to the link inside of the description and make sure you subscribe to my Substack. You can subscribe for free, and follow the journey there. It is twofold. And then essentially what I'm doing is in the evening before I go to bed, I am doing a video similar to this to kind of talk about like what specifically I was looking at for the day, what kind of came up, and essentially, in a lot of ways, processing this out loud with you all. And, you know, why am I doing this? Because I was led to do this. I felt compelled to do it. And I'm obeying. I'm being obedient to God and showing up in this way. So hopefully it will get to all of the people it's meant to get to, so that you can look at different, aspects of your own life and hopefully go on a journey of transformation of your own, right? So you might not be someone who is touched by the good girl stereotype or archetype, as I like to call it. You might have other things that you're dealing with. And this is just to show that at any point, at any time, especially as a business owner, you will always come face to face with the next level of personal development that you're meant to embody, that you're meant to walk out. And if kind of like Mission Impossible, this is your mission if you choose to accept it, right? Is to deconstruct some of these things, deprogram some of these things, and move through that. So today on my Substack, I talked about the concept of adding gene keys, of course, to this journey into the scenario because it is a tool that I use for myself, but as well for my clients when we're getting into their branding and their marketing, and really looking at crafting their messaging so that they're magnetic, getting clear on who their community is. All of these things, there are um, insights into that in the way in which you have been divinely designed. And one of the tools that I use to help my clients uncover that is Gene Keys. So you definitely can go and check out the article because I get into more detail about around exactly, what are Gene Keys, why it even matters to me right now, and how I'm working on my particular Gene Keys in this process, and you know utilizing as this invitation essentially to kind of go deeper. So with that for today, the journal prompt that I was working with is looking at my attraction sphere and my vocation spheres. So for those that are not familiar, this is essentially what your Jinky chart looks like. Mine has a lot of writing on it because I actively work in mine. But essentially, these circles here are your spheres, and this is what your Jinky chart looks like. And what I'm looking at is this one right here, this circle here, and this circle here. So, the attraction sphere is essentially this area within your chart that shows you how you are most naturally magnetic. It speaks to essentially your aura and what attracts people to you. And then your vocation is your inner calling. And what does that look like? And so inside, so I am going to be talking about this from a level that I'm going to make a couple of assumptions. And those assumptions are that you know the basics of Gene Keys, and that's it, right? Like, you don't have to necessarily be no expert at Gene Keys, but I am going to assume that you know some of the basics, like um that each gene key comes with three frequencies, which is shadow, a gift, and the city. And that's pretty much what I'm assuming that you know, right? Um, and so what one of the journal prompts was saying, looking at my attraction and my vocation spheres, what patterns do you notice? And then specifically as it relates to some of this good girl energy, right? That's coming up. So for me, my attraction sphere is Jinky 47, which I have created my own um archetypes for these to make them easier to understand. And so Jinky 47 is the archetype of the alchemist, which is the way in which I attract. So my uh energy, people are drawn to me through my ability to essentially transform challenges into wisdom, pain into power, obstacles into opportunities, right? Scarcity into um abundance, right? Like in this whole concept of transmutation, essentially turning lead into gold, right? And so with that, that means that I experience a lot of things in order to be able to transmute them and also to be able to um, show other people how to do that, right? This makes me very intriguing to people. They sense kind of like the depth of my journey. Um, my insight is important to people. And yeah, the issue with this is that when I am operating in my shadow, which for this particular one is the shadow of oppression, or essentially, basically, if I'm out in misalignment, right? If I'm out of alignment, that's all your shadows really are. This is essentially with you being in a lower frequency, so you're out of alignment with how you are naturally designed to show up. So when I'm out of alignment in this particular space, I have this ability to attract relationships and experiences that kind of mirror old wounds, struggles, patterns of oppression, reinforce cycles of hardship, right? Um, Essentially making things harder than they have to be. Right? Like, let's just keep it real. Right. And so the key for me is to always find ways to appreciate my transformation, honor my wisdom, um, and then others will desire to grow alongside of me. So just even understanding that aspect of who I am, then me taking this journey probably makes a little bit more sense, even to you that are watching this video. And so that is my attraction sphere, right? Like that is my natural aura. That is what brings people to me. So my inner gifting in all of this, my vocation, is that I am a seer, that I'm a seer literally, and I'm a seer in archetype, right? And so that just essentially means someone that follows their intuition, that's able to see things that others can't see. I am definitely somebody that recognizes patterns, hidden patterns that other people can't see. I anticipate shifts. I'm able to move intuitively. Um, and that's the way I lead as well, right? I have visionary purpose, intuition-led leadership. And so I'm one that's never really gotten along with traditional career paths or traditional things, right? So when I was looking at this, I'm realizing how even operating in the good girl energy, right? Of like the people pleaser portion of it, the part that makes you want to be um placate to other people's comfortabilities, right? That's not even who I was designed to be, right? Like, and so it makes sense. I was somebody before I got into entrepreneurship. I tell this story often. Before I got into entrepreneurship, I really didn't stay at a job longer than 3 years, right? 3 years was probably about the average. There was a couple that I stayed longer, maybe like 5 years. I may have stayed, I did a lot of government work, so I may have stayed, for example, working for a particular city, but I would move around to other departments within that city. Um, because after about 3 years, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Like this is boring. I want to do something else. What other experiences can I have? And it was something that literally like drove my father insane at the time because of course, my parents grew up in, you find a good job, you stick with that job, you retire from that job, right? And you get retirement. And as a Gen X per a young Gen X, right? Essentially what they rename us the Zennials, right? We're like that group that's like the young Gen X's and the older millennials, right? They created a special group for us. Um, I was part of that first generation that really realized that these corporations don't care about us and that it was not the same feeling of security that like our parents and our parents' had when it came to like find a good job, get a good company, stay there, right? Because that wasn't a thing. So for me, it was like, what can I go get? I can go get more money. I can go get more experience. Um, and I literally was always the person that could kind of see the writing on the wall. Even in the situations where I got laid off, or even in the situation where I got fired before, I saw it all coming before it happened. Right? Like, because I could see the patterns and the way in which people were moving, even when they thought they were being slick and stuff. And so that's that intuition piece. And I realized that anytime I've doubted my intuition, I've always stayed in things longer than what I was supposed to, right? Because I tricked myself to feel like I did not have the clarity that my intuition actually was giving me because it wouldn't have been the good girl thing to do, right? Like you tough it out, you stay here, you make it work. Um, you be grateful for what you have, right? Like all these different things. Whereas for me, the way I am naturally created is like, no, go out and experience. Don't doubt yourself. Don't question your instincts. Um, you know, you're not someone who feels good in rigid environments, rigid systems, right? And especially not in places that don't recognize my value. And as much as I've been studying my gene keys, because I've been studying my gene keys now for about 6 years, right? And so I know, I've delved into this before, but looking at it in the context, right, of this good girl, like archetype, it was really just like, wow, right? Um, Anytime I felt uneasy, the specifically talking about like career, right, where I felt uneasy, that's the shadow of my vocation of the seer. Or I felt oppressed, right? That's the shadow of the alchemist, Jinky 47. I always felt it, but I don't do it as much now, but there are still, I even still seen in some small ways that I still do this. But back then in my 20s, my early 20s, late 20s, it was very much like, girl, sometimes you just gotta be quiet. You gotta, be quiet, get along to get along, right? But I always, that uneasiness, I'm recognizing that it was always there. That feeling of oppression or feeling like, ugh, this is on my shoulders. I'm feeling like I used to always say I felt trapped, right? So like that's what the oppression feels like to me. Like it felt like I was trapped. Yes, I'm a Sagittarius for those that are into astrology and that are watching this. But those things were always there, but because of conditioning, because of what society tells us and all these different things, I went against my, in a lot of ways, my natural self, how I've been divinely designed, and stayed in things longer than I should have, took positions that I probably shouldn't have taken just because it would give me stability, right? It would give me a steady paycheck. It would give me all these different things that society tells me that I should need and that I should want, right? And so part of me, I feel sad for that younger version of myself because it's like, what experiences did I miss out on by not honoring myself and who I was created to be even then? Um, but this version of me, the 46-year-old version of me, is thankful still for that 20-something-year-old version of me because I did only stay like 3 years, 5 years, right? And so I definitely realized that I could have been leaning into the programming more and been somewhere 10, 15, 20 years totally miserable, right? Like I see with other women that are in my age group, that have been at jobs that they don't necessarily like, right? And then I know some women that absolutely love their careers, right? And so being able to see what the difference really looks like, um, I am proud of her for not staying longer than she did, right? Because everybody was in her ear telling her that she should stay and that she should stick it out. And so her willingness to be like, 3 to 5 years, that's all I got for you, was still a step. I'm realizing now was still a step in the right direction around being who I fully am, because the whole thing was those things were not my soul's work, right? And what I learned from understanding my gene keys is that staying power, that desire to want to stay in a career, in a industry, doesn't activate for me until I'm in my soul's work. Now that I'm in my soul's work, been in business now, uh, going on 12 years, right? Like, so my business is the longest job or career that I've ever had. And why is that? It's because I finally stepped into what I've actually been called to do here. And so now there's not this sense of people pleasing or this sense of being a good girl and sticking to something. um it's more of a calling, is a part of who I am, this work that I do, right? And so it's very different energy, because in this business in this business I could have quit 1,000 times and people would have probably been like, girl, we understand, right? And went back into corporate, went back into state or local city government, right? um but I know that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be doing exactly what I'm doing right now, right? And then different things happen because I am obedient and I'm operating in flow and I'm operating at that highest level. And these are different things that um my gene keys help me to see. And this is why I love this particular tool. And so seeing how it's playing out even in this journey is like, wow, right? So that's it for today. The affirmation for today is every part of me is valuable. My shadows are not my shame, they are my teachers. So every part of me is valuable. My shadows are not my shame, they are my teachers. So I hope this is uh an interesting journey to watch. And I would love to know from you, what are some patterns that you know about yourself, um, that, maybe when it comes to jobs that you've had or even inside your business, where some of those characteristics of the good girl have been showing up. Um, and they have affected the way in which you show up in that space. So that's it. That's all. I'll see y'all tomorrow.